What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. So today I want to make a video in response to a comment I got yesterday. I had someone message me on yesterday's video and say, hey, you should make a video talking about what are the best cards to hold or whatever and stuff like that. And my initial response is to always say that I've made videos like that before, and then I remember that the channel is growing. A lot of people haven't watched a lot of my older videos, and I am super grateful to all of you guys for being here and just watching and supporting. It really is crazy how fast we're growing. I'm grateful for that. But there's also a lot of people who have watched those videos. So what I'm going to try and do today is switch it up a little bit. I do want to talk about cards and products that I recommend people holding right now, but I'm also going to try and take it a step further and break it down by maybe like 3 or 4 different categories in terms of how much money people want to put into the game. So if you have, say, 6 figures in one piece versus 5 figures versus 4 figures, versus if you only have like a couple $100s, whatever, what you should be doing with that money. So we'll talk about that today. But before we get into that, I do want to talk about yesterday's video. I said if we got to 200 likes, I would give away lifetime access to my spreadsheet. We did indeed get to 200. I've been holding off recording this for like an hour and a half because it was at like 197, then 198, 199. I was like, I'll just wait till it gets to 200. So we got to 200 likes. What I'm thinking is probably the best way of doing it is, if you're watching this video right now, leave a comment down below, and then after like a day or so when I go to record my next video, I'll just run the URL through a random comment generator and it'll pick one out, and then that person I'll get in contact with, and we'll just give them the invite link to look at the spreadsheet. And again, this is something that I put a lot of work into. I am trying to build it out. It's mainly for Pokemon. We are tracking currently the One Piece booster boxes monthly, and then also the top 20 manga cards and non-manga cards. The funny thing about the non-manga cards, though, is I have added in the manga event rares to that just because I figured they're different enough from manga cards that we're just going to count them as being a non-manga. But whatever, I digress. Point being, if you want access to this, lifetime access, we'll give you the invite link. It's a pretty boring spreadsheet, but I feel like the information in there is important. It can hopefully help you guys make better investing decisions, whether it is in One Piece or Pokemon. So if you do want to get that, leave a comment down below. We'll pick someone in next video. So getting into today's video and talking about the long game in One Piece investing, and how to really succeed, what you should be doing right now. I think we're in uncharted territory when it comes to investing in One Piece. I don't think we've seen a boom like this ever before. A lot of this, I think, is coming off the back of Pokemon. I think a lot of people are currently leaving Pokemon. We're definitely seeing a slowdown in terms of growth. Actually, a lot of products are going through a correction currently over there, and it makes sense. I mean, I just made a video today talking about the best performing sealed products and cards. A lot of them are up over 300%. Some even up like 450% over the past 12 months, which is crazy. And a lot of that attention per se, I think, is coming over to One Piece. People are continuing to try and make gains, and that's why we're seeing a lot of the top products and cards moving right now. But it brings up the question, what should you do with your investments if you still have a lot of these cards? If you're sitting on mangas right now, if you're sitting on a bunch of Romance Dawn boxes. And what we're going to do is we'll start with the most expensive category, which probably won't apply to a ton of people if you have like 6 figures in One Piece. We'll go through that fast, and then we'll break it down by the more relevant categories. So if you have 6 figures into TCGs, like I currently do, you may or may not be a little insane, so you might just want to get checked. I mean, I get checked on a yearly basis just to make sure that everything's going right up there. But, if you really do believe in this stuff long term, you have that large a position, you're probably not worried about what's going to happen in the short term, in a 1 year to 2 year period. And really, that's kind of the life cycle for a lot of these sets, is about 24 months, maybe a little bit longer. Again, rotation's just starting to happen next year, so we don't know what Bandai is going to do, but a lot of people, myself included, are theorizing that once sets go a rotation, they're not going to be printed anymore. And honestly, it could even be earlier than that, but about 2 years, right? So if we're not worried about that, we probably have a 5-year time horizon, maybe even 10 years. And when I look at One Piece, you should be holding the best stuff, because historically, in other TCGs, the top cards, the top sealed products, those are the ones that over a long enough period of time almost always are the best performing investments. So Romance Dawn Blue Bottom booster boxes, if you are putting that much money into the hobby, you should probably own at least one of these, if not multiple of these, if not maybe even a sealed case if you're going high six figures. So that is the first thing. You could also have some white bottoms, like maybe you want to buy a case of white bottoms. OPO5, again, another great set. We're going to talk about the Luffy cards inside of here later in the video. PRBO1, the Manga God Pack, is something that is unrivaled in One Piece. And I don't think is ever going to be matched again by Bandai. Honestly, like that is just an incredible product, unless they do decide to do another God Pack of manga cards in the future, which who knows, maybe Bandai will end up doing. PRBO1, it just seems like such a great option. If you're high six figures, buy a lot of that. Same thing with 09, EBO2. We've talked about these sets so many times. OP13 coming out, EBO3. Like these are all sets that I would be buying cases of and storing away for the long term because they are the top tier sets in One Piece. They're way better than anything else. Now you can get a little bit of exposure to every set. I think that's fine, just in case, get your schmuck insurance. You could also buy a super pre-release like the Luffy. You could also get some of the anniversary sets. I think that's totally fine. Now, when it comes to buying the top cards, obviously you have a few options. You could go for the raw card, you could go for a PSA 10, or you could also go for the Beckett Black Labels. And I think if you're putting that much money into One Piece, go for the Black Labels if you can afford it. It just seems like the obvious play when we look at the premiums on those compared to the PSA 10s. It's normally somewhere between like 2.5x all the way up to 5x what the PSA 10 is. And we got to be real with ourselves. There's only going to be so many of those out there. I mean, we've already talked about the Gold Roger being potentially more difficult to pull compared to a lot of the other mangas in 09. And then you think about how many of those are actually going to get a black label. I mean, it just seems like such an obvious play. Same thing with the Gear 5 Luffy, the Ichiro stamped card, a black label of that would just be golden as well. So all of those top cards are no-brainers. All of the top sets are absolute no-brainers. Hold those. Don't even think about selling right now. But if you only have, say, 5 figures into One Piece, or I don't know, like $7,000, $8,000, $9,000, something like that, that's where I think your strategy does have to change a little bit. And I would want to probably be a little bit more sealed heavy if that was the amount of your portfolio. For example, say you only had $10,000 in One Piece. Currently, you could buy a PSA 10 Gear 5 Luffy for about $8,000, something like that. I don't know about you guys, but having 80% of my portfolio in one graded card probably would not sit well with me. And again, these are cards that have run up like over 100% within the course of like 90 days. So we've already seen crazy growth on them. Whereas I think a lot of the sealed product, although it's doing super well, I mean, Blue Bottom Box is up 177%, White Bottoms 170 on the year, Awaken the New Era over 100% as well, PRBO1 around 200%. These are deflationary assets that don't rely on a lot more people coming into the hobby in order for them to grow in price. So I would much rather have a lot more sealed. So if you only have about $10,000 to play with and you have a lot of manga cards currently that you're holding or a lot of high-end SPs, maybe it's time to start selling off some of those, taking some profits, and then funneling that into sealed product. Now, I know there's going to be some people in the comment section, Grayson, I don't like holding sealed product. I only want to hold cards. I totally get that. If that's you, if you believe in the cards long term, then I would just recommend holding the best ones, right? I don't think it's worthwhile to hold something like the Silver Blackbeard SP from OP12 when you can hold something like the manga Luffy from OP09, right? Like to me, Luffy is a much more desirable character. I think the mangas just in general have a lot more desirability than these gold and silver SPs. And I think long term, they are just going to continue to perform better than a lot of those lower end, maybe like B tier, C tier cards, right? And that's just the reality. If we're putting a lot of the mangas in A tier, you do have to put a lot of those SPs and lower tier cards, alternate arts, whatever, into the B and C tiers, right? And I'm not here to argue about what you think is a good artwork, a bad artwork. Again, that's subjective. But the point is just to hammer home, invest in the best stuff. So that's what I would do. Now, if you have less than $10,000, say you only have, I don't know, $5,000 in One Piece, excuse me. And that's, again, like that's a lot of money. It's not chump change at all. If I had $5,000, it would be very difficult for me to want to hold like a high-end card, for example, the gold Luffy SP. It's going for, we just saw yesterday, like $3,900 in a PSA 10. I would not feel comfortable owning something like that. Now, if you want to hold a couple of the mangas raw maybe, or some of the cheaper ones in a PSA 10, that is definitely an option to go for if you are going to do that. And again, I probably wouldn't recommend that just because going further down the ladder to some of these lower tier mangas, probably not going to be the best ROI long term. But if you are planning to do that, go for the more popular characters. I would go for maybe the Gear 4 Luffy from OP11. That's $660 raw. I think PSA 10 is like, what, $1,300 currently. Maybe you want to go for the Law manga from '05, the Nami from PRBO1, even the Ace, honestly, not the reprint from PRBO1, but just the original. Like, some of those might be better options than something like the Soga King or the Sabo. But I would probably recommend those types of people that have that amount of money to play with to put a decent amount of it into sealed product. Again, sealed, deflationary as time goes on. It's just such a no-brainer. If you only have $5,000 though, probably doesn't make sense to spend $3,000 on a Romance Dawn. I'm bringing up the white bottom there. Spending $3,000 on a blue bottom booster box. You could buy maybe a white bottom box that would be about 10%, 12% of your portfolio. OPO5, I think getting a box at that rate would be fine. PRBO1 as well. Obviously, that's what, $1,500 almost between 3 boxes. Getting up there, but I still think it makes sense long term. You could also look at things like '09, still relatively cheap compared to some of those sets, around $215. EBO2, same boat, around $220, still relatively cheap. You could also throw in, I don't even know, like Wings of the Captain 165, that's kind of on the move now. Even OP12, which again is not my favorite set. It's also a brand new set, so over the next couple of years, it's probably not going to be the most exciting investment. But if you're buying boxes at $90, I mean, you could get a case for, I don't know, $1,100 or so right now. Kind of seems like a no-brainer. And then you have a fairly large position to work with in One Piece where you also don't have a ton of downside. Another box that I didn't bring up the listing for on TCG Player, but I mean OP11, that's down to like $140 again. We're getting more boxes on the market. It's not going to be the top S tier investment that some people think it's going to be, but it's going to be a very strong investment. I definitely put it in A tier, and it's cheap right now. You could still get a case for what, $1,500? If you had $5,000 in One Piece, I think that's fine, honestly, just based on how strong of a set it is. You could absolutely go that route. And then finally, for people that have less than $1,000 in One Piece right now, asking me what I would recommend them holding, I actually would not recommend holding almost anything if you had less than $1,000 in One Piece. And for some of you guys, that might come as a surprise, but hear me out. So I didn't bring up the Facebook groups, but I've actually been looking at the One Piece Canada Facebook group, and a lot of people are putting up cards for sale all day, every day, right? Like, it's still very liquid product, and we're not even in a boom like we were with Pokemon earlier this year. You can still get a lot of One Piece product at a decent price, and you can still find people that are willing to give you bulk deals if you buy a lot of product. You can find undervalued singles. I mean, I saw someone throwing up like the Jewelry Bonnie manga for I think 600 Canadian yesterday, near mint copy. I think the Gear 4 Luffy I saw for like 700 or 800 Canadian. So if you only have $1,000 or so, sure, you could buy a card or two, like a top manga. You could buy a couple booster boxes, and maybe in a couple years you double your money. But if you're willing to take that money and maybe a couple extra hours a week and invest that into sourcing deals, whether it's on Facebook or Instagram, whatever, taking those cards and then reselling them on eBay or, locally, whatever it is, making your 20, 30% margin, just building that cash flow over time. I mean, that's how I started in this hobby. People ask me, like, how did I build my 6-figure position in TCGs? The answer is I started while I was still at university. I was doing a lot of video game reselling. I would buy collections that I saw on Facebook, also like lots on eBay that I thought were undervalued. I would bring all the stuff in, I'd clean it up. If I needed to do repairs on, the consoles or whatever, or some of the games, like maybe the pins on a SNES game, they were dirty or whatever, like I'd clean all those up. I'd part everything out. I'd make, 40, 50, 60%, sometimes over 100, 200%, depending on the deal. And I did that part-time for, 2 to 3 years before it really blew up and I built a lot of money. And at that point I was able to, transition more into doing Amazon, doing FBA there and making even larger margins on certain items and just churning and burning until I got to a very large position that I'm now able to derive larger benefits from, right? Again, like if you make 100% on $5, you made $5. If you make 100% on $10,000, you make $10,000, and it's all scalable, provided that you put enough time into it. So if you only have a few bucks right now, I think there's still a ton of opportunity just buying collections, making money, and making it work for you eventually as time goes on. If you have a little bit more money, I would recommend holding sealed product. It's really just the big players out there that I think I'd feel comfortable recommending holding a lot of the manga cards and the top chases in, whatever it's SPs, promos as well. I mean, there's tons of them that we could talk about. This could be like a 2 hour long video just breaking down serialized cards versus treasure cup cards versus championship cards. There's so many ways you could go about it. And ultimately, at the end of the day, you do have to do what's right for you. These are just my recommendations. It definitely has my bias behind it. I'm not a super expert when it comes to picking individual cards. I'm humble enough to understand that those are very volatile markets and they move without my consent. So I would rather just buy sealed product that I know is a no-brainer play and just sit on it and let time do its thing. But there are people that just only buy cards, whether it's the top promos or the mangas chases, and they make huge money. I mean, 3, 4, 5 months ago, it was definitely a lot clearer to me that buying the manga cards was the right decision. But now that a lot of stuff has run up, over 100% in certain cases, 200%, 300% on some of these cards, I just don't know if it is the best play right now. And I could be entirely wrong. Mangas could continue to climb to like $10,000 a piece, who knows? And a lot of that is dependent on the growth of the scene, but we could also be in a situation where manga cards don't move over the next 2 years, or maybe they pull back on, certain ones that aren't the top ones, or maybe even the top cards like the Luffy and the Gold Roger, even those pull back. So in my opinion, it's best to always hedge your bets, be conservative when investing in TCGs, because I know a lot of people, especially if you're coming from Pokemon, it seems like everything just always goes up, nothing ever crashes, there's no problems that could happen. But the reality is shit can definitely hit the fan when it comes to investing in TCGs. And I don't want to scare anyone away from investing in TCGs, but you also need to acknowledge the risks that you are taking when you invest in this type of product. So hopefully all that makes sense. If you guys have any questions, if I didn't explain anything well, definitely feel free to leave a comment down below. Again, if you want to win access, lifetime access to my spreadsheet, leave a comment on this video. I appreciate the support on yesterday's video, guys. We're now up to 203 likes. It's crazy how fast the channel is growing. I'm going to just continue trying to give you guys the best content possible, providing you with the best advice I've learned over my past few years in the hobby, and just provide you with the best data, at least what I'm seeing on eBay and TCG Player, and hopefully that we can all make good choices and hopefully make some money as well and enjoy the hobby. So with all that said, I appreciate you guys watching. Shameless plug as well, if you are shopping eBay, TCG Player, Cardboard Hero, Hobbiesville, I do have affiliate links down below. They're free and easy to use. All you have to do is click on it before you do the shopping you already plan to do. I'll get a small percentage of the sale at no extra cost to you, so it's a free and easy way to support me continuing to make these videos. But with all that said, thank you so much for watching. Stay safe wherever you are in the world. I hope you had a great weekend, and I'll catch you in the next one.